Multiple delays, high-profile departures, and revamps later, the role-playing game Avowed is finally on track to launch on February 18th for Xbox Series X and S and PC. This is nearly 5 years after its initial announcement in 2020, and given the genre's popularity, expectations are high. At $69.99 for the Standard Edition, $89.99 for the Premium Edition granting 5 days of advanced access, here are 15 things you should know before pre-ordering. Setting. Set in the world of Eora, similar to Pillars of Eternity, Avowed takes players to the living lands where a mysterious plague called the Dream Scourge is wreaking havoc. As an envoy, you seek to discover what's going on and ultimately stop it, but it turns out there's also a specific connection to the land. Despite the familiar setting, you don't need to have played Pillars of Eternity's series to understand the plot. Companions. You won't be doing it alone though, with 4 different companions to recruit throughout. These include the science-focused Giata, the soldier Kai, the hunter Marius, and the scholar Yatsli. Up to 2 companions can travel and fight alongside you, and along with unique abilities and skills, they also have separate side quests. Factions. It wouldn't be an RPG without factions, and thus far, there seems to be at least 3 notable options. The first is seemingly tied to your duties as an envoy to stop the Dream Scourge, while the second believes it's a symptom of a threatening rot. Then there's Giada's side, seemingly suggesting to open yourself to its mysteries and become the protector of the living lands. Regardless of which you choose, your destiny will significantly change. Interconnected zones. Thus far, the world of Avowed is shaping up pretty nicely with extensive attention to detail and varied environments to explore. Various previews have noted all the little things that you can discover, like secret areas with chests, puzzles, and side quests, on top of varied enemy types, including the Xiaolip from Pillars of Eternity. It's not quite an open world, but there are several open zones to explore which are interconnected. Starting quests. Quests are a major part of the experience as well, and what's especially interesting is the various ways you can begin them. In Avowed, most quests have more than one way to initiate them. There's full flexibility on how you want to decide the order, terminate an NPC, give specific items to them, and so on. You are in complete control at times. It's even possible to approach dungeons from different paths. The objective is for players to make through the world in an organic manner and continuously focus on exploration and finding every nook and cranny of the world. Choices and consequences. Of course, you'll also make plenty of choices where many consequences won't be immediately obvious. Quote, there are choices that you're going to make that are going to have immediate effects, choices that you'll make that will have effects that you'll see maybe hours later, and some that you'll make that you'll come to see at the very end of the game, kind of how those play out further on into the future, said the developer to Game Informer. Additionally, quote, but along with that, you've got choices that are very intimate and impactful for specific characters, and some that affect the state of the entire settlements of the living lands and the living lands at large. Said choices will also affect your bonds with companions, which can, quote, come back to reward or haunt you, or likely a bit of both a few hours later when you meet those characters, allies, and adversaries. Depending on your choices, it may even be more challenging to earn an ally's trust. Combat. As showcased since its reveal, combat in Avowed is real-time, with players free to mix and match weapon types, skills, and more with relative freedom. So you can wield a weapon in one hand and cast magic with the other, or dual-wield certain weapons, leading to ridiculous combos. It's even possible to switch between different options depending on the situation. Weapon types. Said combos include dual pistols, but you can also wield 2 wands at a time, which makes spellcasting faster. Otherwise, the usual swords, shields, axes, bows, and whatnot apply. Weapons can also be enhanced, adding elemental damage and upgraded over time. Weapon improvements. When Avowed's combat was first revealed, it didn't exactly set our expectations ablaze, mostly due to the weapon reactions. Fortunately, things on this front have improved significantly, with much praise heaped on senior combat designer Max Matzenbacher. Speaking to PC Gamer, the developer said, quote, "Max has a superpower of looking at an animation and deciding how much hit stop there should be for it to feel good. He has tweaked every weapon with hit stop differently, like the hammer. The special attack kind of lodges the hammer into the enemy and then brings it down for an area of effect attack. All the tweaking, all the animation timing, all the times when I send him a particular effect and he's like, I'm gonna play with it right at this instant. He's done a fantastic job, and he's done it with every weapon. The result is more weighty and visceral combat that feels more realistic, to the extent that weaker weapons may even bounce off instead of slicing through." PC requirements. In terms of PC requirements, Avowed will be slightly heavier than your average RPG. Minimum hardware includes an AMD Ryzen 5 2600 or Intel Core i5 8400, 16GB RAM, and a Radeon RX 5700, GeForce GTX 1070, or Intel Arc A580. The recommended requirements include a Ryzen 5 5600X or Core i7 10700K, 16GB RAM, and a Radeon RX 6800 XT or GeForce RTX 3080. The performance and settings in both cases are unknown. At least the required install space is, quote, only 75GB across the board. Ray tracing and DLSS 3 support. Fortunately, NVIDIA DLSS 3 is supported on PC at launch, which should help with performance. RTX is also available, resulting in ray-traced reflections and improved global illumination. You can also toggle NVIDIA Reflex for lower latency responses. Accessibility features. Regarding accessibility features, Avowed offers the usual, like toggling head bobbing, field of view customization, adjusting the text size of the UI and subtitles, turning off camera shake, and so on. However, the controls are also fully remappable, and localization is available for 12 languages, though voice acting is only in English. You can also switch toggle hit flash in different scenarios, like when staggering enemies, and even enable companions to manage their own skills. Hiding dialogue checks. However, perhaps the most intriguing option for the UI is the ability to hide failed dialogue checks. As PC Gamer noted in their preview, this means not being able to see the stats required for certain choices. It's an intriguing option and one that adds to the role-playing experience like few other titles. Xbox Series X and S frame rate. When it comes to the game's performance on the Xbox Series X and S, there have been some mixed messages. The developer first told the Iron Lords podcast that you don't, quote, necessarily need that 60 frames, and that it allowed for the team to, quote, get a lot juicier with the VFX and lighting and all this other stuff. It's a trade-off we opted to make relatively early, and we're really happy with that. The game's running pretty smoothly for how viscerally dense it is, and that was always our goal. However, the developer later told Paris Lily that 30 frames per second, at least on the Series X, is, quote, not our target. We will hit that at the very least. We're fully into performance optimization and want to deliver a beautiful world at the best frame rate we possibly can. We're working on that right now. Scope and playtime. The original plan was for Avowed to be Skyrim-like and also implement co-op. Neither went as planned, but the experience is still fairly sizable. The developer compared the scope to The Outer Worlds when speaking to Game Informer last year. Quote, players can expect a roughly similar experience, just like The Outer Worlds, depending on what kind of difficulty they play on and how thoroughly they explore and invest in side content, versus just sticking to the main critical path missions, they said. If you decide to opt into all the extra content, then this could mean about 30 hours of gameplay. For those keen on a story-focused experience, it might last 15 hours like The Outer Worlds. It's all up to how you want to play.
And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at Gaming Vault, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.